So we are on our second part of our new series that we started last week, the walk. And if you weren't here last week, some of what we're bringing has come from a book called Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer, which is really all about discipleship. And we are going to jump straight into the today's message. And the bottom line is this. I want you to know that with Jesus, you can live freely and lightly. Who wants to know that actually? Do you know what? There is a lightness that comes from knowing Jesus that is great. And that's what I want to tell you. And I want to start by asking you a question. Do you need a rest? Hands up who thinks they need a rest. Let's hope. No judgment from me. I hold my hands up as that as well. You see, the Bible says that Jesus says we can learn to live freely and lightly in Him. You see, we started off last week talking about this series, and we said as an overview, Jesus invites us to be with Him, He invites us to become like Him, and He invites us to do as He does. Be with Him, become like Him, and do as He does. And today we're going to look at the first part of that. We're going to look at what does it mean to actually be with Jesus. And we're going to start with a verse from the Bible. And this is from the book of Matthew. And it's Matthew 11, 28 to 30. And I'm reading this from the Message translation. It says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." How amazing is that? You see, last week, to give some context to this verse, last week we were talking about how Jesus is a rabbi, and the rabbis would call people to walk with him, and it was a physical thing. He called the disciples, "Put down your nets and follow me." And they walked along the road with him. And this kind of carries on from that. Get away with me and you'll recover your life.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll learn to live freely and lightly. And you see, there are three things that I think are really important if we are going to learn to be with Jesus. And it doesn't matter if you've been a Christian for 5 minutes or if you've been a Christian for 50 years. I think we can all take something from this. I think we can all take something from these three principles that I want to share with you today about how do we just be with Jesus.
Yeah, that's good.
These three principles should help all of us in our Christian life. And the first one is simply this. We are to set our mind. You see, when Jesus called the disciples, he meant, in the literal sense, leave your stuff, get up and walk with me. And they left their jobs, they left their families, and they followed Jesus along the road. And for those disciples, for 3 years, they dedicated their time to being with Jesus. We can't do the same because Jesus is not physically here knocking on the door of the church saying, "Come for a walk with me. We're going to go for a walk around the estate." He's not there in that way. But actually, we can't do that in the physical way that the disciples did, but we can still find ways to be present with Jesus.
That's right. Yeah, that's good.
You see, to set our minds is to choose to think upon things, to direct our minds to God throughout our day. So it's not just an isolated event. Sometimes, maybe you're like, I'm going to pray. And you find a quiet space, and you close your eyes, and you talk to God. And in that moment, you're present. In that moment, you're setting your mind on God. But I don't think that's all there is to setting your mind to God. I don't think we limit God to these moments where we sit down and say, right, I'm going to put my hands together, I'm going to pray. But actually we choose to set our minds continually on God, continually on Jesus, as we go through our lives. See, in Colossians, the Apostle Paul puts it like this: set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. You see, he tells us, he instructs us where to focus our thoughts. And we're to set them on things, not the mundane stuff of the day, but set our thoughts higher on the creator of the universe. And King David expresses a similar sentiment in one of the Psalms. In fact, in Psalm 16:8, he puts it like this: I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, and I shall not be moved. You see, David made a commitment of where he would place God in his life. I place God before me. We look forward, and he's looking towards God. He makes God the focus of his attention so that he can set his mind on God.
Yeah, that's good. Really good.
So how do we do that in our daily lives? Well, I don't know about you, I struggle with distractions.
Yeah.
And I know that, I sit down. I'm not a morning person. Okay? If I didn't have an alarm, or let me rephrase that, if I didn't have a wife, I would sleep in every morning, because I naturally do not wake up. But actually, I made a decision to wake up early and sit and read my Bible. And in those moments, there are distractions. Maybe your phone pings and you think, oh, I better put my phone on silent. And then you have this thought about, I've got to remember today there's some washing in the machine. I've got to take the washing out and hang it out before I go to work. And these things, and then you're just like, right, okay, we're in the moment. And then Josiah wakes up and he knocks on the door and says, can I go downstairs and turn the TV on? And there's these distractions that come, and maybe you struggle with those distractions. Or maybe simply you forget about Jesus throughout the day. You get distracted on other things, and then you think, oh yeah, Jesus is with me. And you forget in those moments. And I think we are all guilty of forgetting about Jesus throughout our day. You see, I think our brains can be a little bit like our mobile phones sometimes. Now, I don't know about you, but this is what happens with my phone. You get a new phone and it starts off great. And then, over the space of a year or two, you start installing apps and you think, oh, that'll be good, and I'll install that. And then, Grace comes and says, well, you download this game, it's really good, and you install the game, and you go, oh. And my phone gets clogged up, because it's got all these different things going on, all these different apps. And eventually, your phone can't handle it, and it starts not working properly, because you've filled it up with all this stuff that you didn't need. And I think our brains get a bit like that. I think our brains get clogged up as we take on more things, and we have more things to think about, and maybe we overcommit, and we join this extra club, and we do this thing, and we do that thing, and before you know it, those moments of sitting down and experiencing God's presence become overrun with so many things that we're thinking about. And I'm not saying in that you have to give up on everything that you enjoy. That's not what it's about. But I think that when we have too many things going on, it just fills our brains with distraction. But there is good news. There is good news, because we are capable of retraining our brains. You see, you don't need to do what I sometimes had to do with my phone, which is reset to factory settings and wipe everything and start from the beginning. But actually, maybe in your brain you can install a few apps. You can take a few of those distractions and say, I'm going to put those to one side. I'm going to give that thing to Jesus. And you can tidy up your thought life.
Yeah, that's good.
You see, the scientific term for that is called neuroplasticity. And it simply means this, that our brains, up until the moment we die, are capable of making new connections. We can train our brains to work in different ways. So maybe you've got a challenge, and that's, do you know what? The first thing I want to think about when I wake up is God. And maybe at the minute, the first thing you think about when you wake up is something that's worrying you, something that's on your mind. But actually, we're capable of training our brains to think differently. And through setting good habits and asking God to help us in that, we can form new habits in our discipline of our minds, the discipline of how we think. You see, I think Jesus should be our first response when we think of things. And actually, Jesus doesn't have to be compartmentalized into the moment of I'm going to sit down and pray.
Yes.
But actually, he is throughout our thought life when we're doing the mundane. When I'm doing the dishes, am I thinking about God? I don't do it very often. I concede to that one, Diane, I'm very sorry. I don't do the dishes that often, but when I do the dishes, it's nice because you can take your mind off things, you can just think. You don't have to concentrate on what you're doing. It's a time to think. Maybe when you're picking the kids up from school and you're stood in the playground, is that a moment where you just go, hey God, what is it you want to say to me today? Do we use those moments and set our minds on God in those mundane moments in our lives? You see, being with God is a habit. It's an intentional decision that we make to be in God's presence.
Yeah, that's right.
And the second thing that I think is really important, if we're just going to be with God, is this word abide. And let me explain where that comes from in the Bible. Because if setting our mind is about thinking about Jesus, then abiding is the way in which we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You see, to abide simply means to remain in something. We're told that we're to stay in God's presence, we're to remain in his presence. We should find God's presence and continue to be in that moment. You see, I think we're all abiding in something. And maybe we're abiding in fear. Or maybe we abide in worry. Maybe we abide in, consumed by our work. But maybe we could choose to abide in him, to abide in Jesus, and dwell upon him. Train our thoughts to be on him. You see, we all dwell on past hurts, arguments from long ago, retelling the same story in our head. But we can choose to dwell on God. We can dwell on his goodness, his mercy, and his kindness.
That's right.
And the Bible puts it like this in John 15. And I read from the Christian Standard Bible. It says this: I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes. And he prunes every branch that produces fruit, so that it will produce more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I in you. Just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit, because you can do nothing without me. You see, Jesus teaches the importance of remaining, of staying connected to him, remaining in his presence. And he also warns us of the dangers of losing that connection, losing that presence.
Yeah.
And as we do that, we lose the ability to remain in the fruit. The fruit stops producing because we lose the source. See, I put it like this: the more you pray, the more you stay.
That's good. Yeah.
And as we choose to dwell on God, the more we will naturally abide in his presence. I was sat in our community pantry on Thursday, and someone wanted to come to talk to me. I sat down at the table, and one by one, loads of different distractions came along. So the first thing, someone came in and they needed to use the pantry, and I had to sort of get up and go through and help someone who was using the pantry, and then they finished and I came and I tried to sit back down, and then the door came and we had a visitor who came in and they needed to speak to me, and one by one all of these distractions came that interrupted the flow of the conversation between myself and the person that was sat here in the room. And I think sometimes we allow our lives to be like that in the middle of our conversation with God. And maybe it goes like this: we'll be there in a minute. When I'll be right there. Just give me 2 minutes. I just have to deal with this. Something's come up. Or can we reschedule for next week? These things, and we make our excuses for interrupting the presence of God. I was chatting to someone, I think before Christmas, and they said, look, I said, I've not been to church for ages. I know I need to come back to church. And he said, but I want to get my life sorted first. I've got stuff going on in my life. I want to get myself right, and then I'll come back to church. And I said, well, you've missed the point.
Yeah, that's right.
If that's your outlook on life, you've missed the point. Because the presence of God is where all the mess gets sorted out.
Yeah,
We don't need to fix things in our own strength, and then when we're right, when we've figured out life, we come to God. Because we'll never get to that point. We come to God, however broken we are, and we come to the presence of God, and He begins a work in us.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Bible says, in a few minutes we'll read it, it says from glory to glory, that He transforms us into His image. But it starts with not our fixing our own problems, it starts with us coming to God and saying, I just want to be with you, God. It says this in Luke 10. While they were travelling, He entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed Him into her home. She had a sister Mary, who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what He said. But Martha was distracted with many tasks. And she came up and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? So tell her to give me a hand. And Jesus responds in this way. Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her. You see, Mary chose to put all the other stuff aside and just be in God's presence. Be in the presence of Jesus. You see, we're told to be with Jesus, not do with Jesus.
Yeah, that's good.
See, this is the foundation of being with God. It's sitting at the feet of Jesus and listening to Him. Just being in His presence. And that being in God's presence is a continual act of abiding in Him. It's a choice we make as we train ourselves and we choose to dwell in His presence. And the third thing I want to tell you is this. That to abide in God's presence means that we contemplate. And I'm going to explain in a moment what I mean by that. When we abide in God's presence, we contemplate. If you look up the word contemplate in the dictionary, it will say this: the act of looking thoughtfully at something for a long time. And I don't think that looking thoughtfully at something for a long time truly does justice to the art of contemplating God. You see, it's more than just a deep reflective thought. The biblical definition of contemplate is this: it's a deep, prayerful reflection on God, His words, and His works. To contemplate on God is to take time thinking upon, reflecting upon who He is and what He's done. And in 2 Corinthians, it puts it like this: and we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into His image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. So as we contemplate, as we prayerfully reflect on who God is and His works, we are changed into His image with ever-increasing glory. We become more like Jesus as we dwell on who Jesus is.
Yeah, that's good.
Contemplation is not just happy thoughts. I think we live in a society where motivational quotes are everywhere.
Yeah.
Contemplating God is not a motivational quote on your jumper. It is more than that. It's about being aware of the awe of the Creator of the universe.
Yeah.
We need to think about the glory of God, and that word in the Greek is doxa, and it says this: doxa, the glory of God, can be summarized like this. It's quite long, so I'm going to read it to you. Doxa means splendor, brightness, magnificence, excellence, preeminence, dignity, grace, kingly majesty, absolute perfection, personal excellence of Christ, glorious condition, exalted state, the glorious condition with God the Father in heaven, to which Christ was raised after he achieved his work on earth. The glorious condition of blessedness into which he is appointed and promised that true Christians shall enter after their Saviour's return from heaven. To dwell on the glories of God is to think about all of that. The doxa. Contemplate that. I think we could spend the rest of our lives contemplating the amazingness of God. You see, when we make a conscious decision to be in God's presence, to dwell in him, to abide in him, to put our distractions aside and contemplate the glory of God, we're transformed into his image. That same verse, if you look it up in the New King James Version, you get a very slightly different translation. Because in that one it says, but we all with unveiled faces, beholding as in a mirror the glory of God. Beholding as in a mirror. And being transformed into the same image of, from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. When we contemplate the glory of God, we reflect his glory to those around us.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the Bible talks about us shining a light. Just think for a minute. Think back to when you were at school. If you were anything like me, you might have been guilty of doing this thing. Did you ever sit in a room with your watch on and you tried to get the reflection of the sun and shine it in someone's eyes? Was that just me? Did anybody else try and do that? Where you're trying, like the sun's coming through the window and you're like, I've got the watch face and I'm going to get it in Jamie's eyes at the back and try and blind him. Was that just me? Because everybody's looking blank. Did anybody else try and do that? All right, thank you, Liv. Me and Liv, clearly. Yeah. You see, when we're staring directly at God, we reflect back God's presence. But you see, as we're in God's presence and we look around the room, the reflection, imagine turning a mirror and the reflection moves. You see, we're told to reflect God's glory. You see, when we contemplate God's glory, we reflect the sun. This week, I would say that I have been guilty of a lot of doing. It's been a busy week. I have quite a lot of jobs on my to-do list. I managed to sit here on Friday and get through quite a lot of those jobs, but it's a lot of kind of non-stop busyness. You get up, you're getting stuff ready, sorting the kids out, going to work, going through your day. I know how easy it is to fill my life up with jobs and stuff. So unusually for me, partly because Diane has been away, yesterday morning, and Josiah was having a sleepover, so Josiah wasn't in the room, in the house to wake up early. I sat in bed yesterday morning as I wrote up my notes for this message. That's not normally something I would do. I tend to get up, I tend to work at my desk most of the time. But I chose to sit in bed, and I opened the blinds and I looked out of the window. That's not like me. In fact, we were discussing what life was like during COVID the other day. And I know there were lots of people that probably sat around in their pyjamas. I was not one of those people. I got up, had a shower, got dressed, and sat at my desk every day at home because that's just the sort of person I am. I don't naturally sit around in my pyjamas. We were discussing about for anybody that worked from home, the number of Zoom calls, whether or not it was a shirt on top and pyjamas on the bottom because they couldn't see the pyjamas. I don't know whether any of you guys did that, but that's not in my character. I would get up and have a shower and get dressed. So to sit in bed is out of my normal routine. And I opened my blind and I looked out of the window and I thought, something looks different. And I could see a long straight line high up in the sky. And for a minute I looked out and I was like, that doesn't look like where I live. Like I look out of the window and it always looks the same. And for a moment I was like, it looked like I could be in a different place. It almost looked like this line was too high up for the horizon and it was just filling the sky. And I thought for a minute, it's like I could be looking at a mountain range in America somewhere. I started contemplating that moment, thinking, well, what is this? What am I actually looking at? And my sort of brain went, maybe, this is my guess, I don't know, my guess is it was very thick fog on the North Sea, and you could see the layer of fog, and you could see the line dividing that from the clouds above. And I thought about it for a minute, and I went back to my notepad, and a few minutes later I looked up, and it had gone, and it went back to looking how I expected it to look when I opened the blinds. And it occurred to me in that moment that had I not opened the blinds and looked out of the window at that moment, I would have never experienced that moment of contemplation and awe at what I was looking at. And I think sometimes we can be guilty of the same, that we don't open the window and look out and take that time to contemplate the glory of God. So I want to bring a challenge, and I'm going to finish it in a moment. And my challenge is this: why not choose to abide in God's presence today? We talked about three things that I think help us to abide in God's presence. The first one is to set our minds. Let's make a decision of where we're going to dwell on our thoughts. Let's get into a good discipline of our thought lives. The second thing is let's abide. The more you pray, the more you stay in his presence. But just like Mary, do we sit and just experience the presence of God? And then last of all, do we take time to contemplate? Do we think about the glory of God and allow that to reflect back into our world? And that transforms us into the image of God. So why not choose to abide in God's presence today?